Europa paktiert
Europe
mit allen Despoten und Despotien.
has contracts with despotic regimes, negotiates with China, buys gas and oil from other countries, which might be criticized.
Die Eurovision findet in diesem Jahr in Aserbaidschan statt. Die Fußball-Europameisterschaft.
The Eurovision Song Contest will take place in Azerbaijan, and the European Championship soccer, I'm talking about, takes place in Ukraine.
Der Welt erfolgreich die Menschenrechte verteidigt.
Has the EU ever defended the human rights somewhere in the world? I mean, is there a human rights policy, an EU human rights policy?
The Iranian government has different television stations in 12, 13 foreign languages, broadcasting programs in these foreign languages. Through these programs, they spread their lies to the world via European satellites. Isn't that an abuse of technology? If you grant the usage or withdraw the usage of your satellites, if you would ban the Iranian government to use this, then the loudspeakers of the regime wouldn't work any longer. The regime would be impaired. However, people would not suffer from that.
Economic sanctions do hurt, and this one can hurt the population. And this is undoubtedly a problem, a contradiction that we have to face. But sometimes we have to be aware that there can be success. You know, the Burmese opposition have told us that it was through the sanction process and the sanction policy that something has come out of that country. We have been trying to deal with the whole issue of TV channel and TV satellites, but it's not easy because you face immediately legal problems. We abide by the legal rules and by the freedom of communication.
That we have not switched off the satellites at present is related to that Europe lives from the free world. The free work, it's part of the Enlightenment, has the right to travel everywhere. On the internet, we have made similar experience, have similar problems, that we transport things on the internet where we say we don't want these messages to be transported. However, we hold high the value that we in Europe don't want to check, don't want to censor what is being said. What we are seeing is that the freedom of communication all over Europe and the Arab world, think of the uprising in the Maghreb states, brings us freedom, openness. Also the opening of the East is related to communication and freedom of information. That is why I would be very careful, although I understand what you are saying.
Also ich würde an der Stelle diesen Appell auch unterstützen wollen und da auch Herr
I
Langenstein
agree, and I would also support the appeal. And I don't agree, Mr. Langenstein. I don't think that it's censorship if you keep governments from promoting rights of violence or hatred. All European satellites excluded Libya. That's a sanction. So this was possible when Libya was concerned. So the same could happen for other countries, I think.
Human rights, politics, cultural politics, are that really two separate areas which are not at all related to each other?
No, I don't think so. Maybe after all this, what we have been doing, trying to reconcile human rights and culture by talking about satellites and broadcasting.
And as long as there are diplomatic relationships and talks with Iran, you cannot switch off their TV. However, what you can do is that you support the opposition technology-wise, with infrastructure and so on, and that you provide to opposition groups the possibility to have free radio programs, free TV programs, free of charge. And it is a severe mistake to believe that if you switch off TV channels somewhere else, that this is improving the discourse of freedom. What you have to do is to invest in information which you spread and not in lies which you prevent. We talk about double standards in Europe. We do have double standards in Europe.
To be honest, you can talk about the European human rights policy and certainly criticize it, but I don't see in any of the countries of the international community really a country that has totally succeeded in implementing a successful and efficient human rights policy.
With all the criticism of double standards, I would go as far as Pierre Vimont saying that we have never implemented successful human rights policy. We saw George Taylor in Den Haag, where he was sentenced. There has been an international court on war crimes in Rwanda, in Yugoslavia. So this is a very clear, concrete success of European human rights policy. So this is something where we made a specific contribution. Europe is the place of freedom where human rights activists go when they are persecuted in the Middle East and Eastern Europe. So we are in Europe, and I'm deliberately using this. We are the city upon a hill. We are the exemplary region of how to handle human rights. We, in the sense of Europe, we Europeans, undoubtedly are examples for the very simple reason that we claim this role for us. However, how well do we live up to it?
Europe is capable of self-criticism, and probably it's the only continent where you find a self-critical approach. I don't know any other continent which would be the same here. And that's the difference, and that's why we are dealing with a European cultural policy which has to have an open attitude in view of the world and must be full of self-criticism in a world which is no longer capable of self-criticism. Europe clearly is the only place where people can speak up critically, and that's a unique cultural value.
I think what we're talking about when we're talking about foreign policy is trying to project the European model, let's put it that way, economic, social, cultural, whatever it is, and to try to project it, its values, its principles, its commitments to the outside world, because we think it is a good system and we want to promote it. 2 or 3 ideas from there. First of all, at the moment with our financial crisis, this European model is suffering. No doubt about it, and I'm not sure that it is as fascinating and as attractive as it may have been a few years ago. And we have to be aware of that and to take that into account when we're trying to promote our European system.
I just would like to draw your attention to the fact that in this new economic development in these countries, we will meet young people who will ask us about our own history in these countries. And we should be a bit more humble. That would be very helpful.
I think one of the major problems I still think that we are facing is that, first of all, maybe we have been quite often a little bit too arrogant in promoting this system. I think we have to be much more in a listening mode than what we have been before. It's about dialogue, it's about listening to what the others have to say, it's about trying to cooperate in the best way possible. So this is the kind of values and principles that we're trying to put forward. Due process of law, justice, political dialogue, tolerance, you name it, it's there. And this is very important, I think, and this is where we have to work. And in the end, this is about culture, because this is really what was and still is, in my opinion, the European spirit at its best. And this is really what we have to defend and promote.